In this video, I'm going to demonstrate an application built on top of the ThingWorx platform that allows end users to rapidly build custom dashboards displaying the data available in the platform. It features an easy-to-use interface built around drag and drop, making it easy to use for users without any kind of development background. Using this app requires already having a ThingWorx solution in place with an existing theme model. It's not really meant to build applications like the Mashup Builder does, but rather its strength lies in enabling users to quickly build their own visualizations, in addition to perhaps an already existing app, but without requiring a development team to do so. So let's get started. I'll launch the application. And when I do so, I'm presented with a screen where I have access to all of the dashboards that I built. I can scroll through them, and when I find the one that I want to open, I just click on it and it goes full screen and it starts to load the data. Many of these widgets that you see on the screen are also interactive. So for instance, with the chart, I can zoom to get a closer look at a particular section of the data. With the grid, I can scroll through it to see older entries and so on. If I'm done with this dashboard and I want to probably see another one, then I can go back to the selection screen by clicking this button, scroll to the next dashboard that I want to see and just click on it to open. I also have the ability to navigate through the dashboards using the keyboard keys. So for instance, if I press the up arrow, it will take me back to the previous dashboard. And if I hit the up arrow again, it will take me to the first dashboard. I can also navigate back to the selection screen using the keyboard. For instance, if I press the escape key, it's going to take me back to the selector, and here as well I can navigate using the keyboard keys and press enter to actually open the dashboard. Here at the top I also have a button that brings up a menu with some additional options. There is an option to edit the dashboard. If I no longer want it, then I can also remove it completely. And there's also an option to share a link to this dashboard, which I will get into a bit later. So that's the, let's say, viewing portion of the app. But what's more interesting is how a visualization like this is actually created. And if I go back to the selection screen, then here at the top, I have a plus button that will let me create a new dashboard. I'll click on it, and this is the builder interface that you use to actually create a dashboard like that. Here on the left hand side there is a list of widgets that I can add to my page, and on the right hand side there is a section where you can select and use data sources. In a way it's kind of similar to the Mashup Builder, but it's a very simplified interface. So the way this works is once again similar to Mashup Builder. I just drag the widget that I want to use. So for instance, I can drag in a value widget. I drop it here in the center panel. And then the next step is to actually add a data source to it so it knows what information to display. To do that, I press the Add Source button here at the bottom of the screen. And a pop-up window opens where I have access to all of the entities within the platform. I can scroll through them to find the one I want, but I can also search for it directly. So for instance, I have an entity that contains information about sales. By clicking the plus button next to it, it gets added as a data source. Now, what's important here is that unlike with Mashup Builder, you don't get a list of services and you don't need to know which service to invoke to actually get to the data. Instead, when you add a data source, you just get access to all of the properties it has, and to display one of these properties on the widget that I have just added, I just drag it onto the widget. If I want, I can also rename this widget to whatever I like. For instance, it can be cost information. Now, I'm also going to show you some of the other widgets that we have. We also have a chart widget that lets you see historic values for a particular property. So I'm just going to drag the costs here again. And this is the same data source but displayed in a different widget. Now with some of these widgets, and especially with the chart, sometimes it might be useful to be able to compare values, and in that case you can just select multiple of them, for instance cost and revenue, and just drag them together onto the same widget, and the chart will automatically reconfigure on its own to show me both of the values at the same time. The other widgets all work very similarly in that you just drag them onto the page and you drag the information that you want them to display, and they just configure themselves to show it. So as you can see, it's very easy to build a dashboard like this. There are no advanced options and nothing to configure, so it's easy for even for users without any kind of development background to build an application like this. In addition to widgets like this, where you drag information from an entity, we also have certain widgets that let you monitor multiple entities at the same time. For example, with the compare table, instead of dragging information from a single entity, then I can drag information that comes directly from an entity type, or a template as it's called in ThingWorx, and it will automatically show me information from all of the entities that inherit from that template. So I have a template here called device, and this works the same way as with any other entity, in that when I add the template, then I directly have access to all of the properties that it declares. So for instance, I can drag just the thing name, and I will get a table that shows me the value of that property for all of the entities that implement this device template. We also have a map widget that can show locations, and similarly this works with templates as well as single entities. So if I drag the location from this device template, the map will show me the locations of all 5 of my devices. There is also a timeline widget that you can use to monitor status property. So for instance, I have a data source here that models a server, and this server has a status that tells me whether it's been running or if it's been offline. And by simply dragging this property, I have a history of the server state. If I'm not happy with the layout of the widgets, then I can also drag to move them around. And finally, the only configuration option that we do have is that sometimes with certain properties, you might want to be able to monitor them very closely. For instance, temperature that might go over a certain threshold. And in that case, each widget has a gear icon that when you press it, it pops up a window where you can configure how fast you want that particular widget to update. So if it's something that doesn't need real-time update, you can set this value to something like an hour or 10 minutes. But for the real critical properties, then you can set this to a very short time so that it's always up to date. When I'm happy with the layout and the information that I have selected, if I want to, I can also rename the dashboard. I will call this one demo dashboard. And the only thing I have to do is just click the green done button. The dashboard will be saved. And it's going to appear in the list just like any other. It's always going to be the last one since it's the most recently created. And I can open it just like any other. So as you can see, it's very easy to build a dashboard like this. It takes literally 2 or 3 minutes. Now, I mentioned earlier that we also have the option to share these dashboards. So for instance, you can imagine a shift manager building a visualization like this. He knows what information the people in the factory need to monitor, but he's probably not going to monitor it themselves. But what he can do is he can create a dashboard like this, and then use the share functionality to send it to the people who actually monitor the values. And this is done very easily as well. If I go back to this menu, there is an option here to share a link to this dashboard. Conveniently, there's also directly a copy link button that I can use to copy it. And what I'll do now is I'll log into the same app but with a different user. Right, so this is a fresh user. He doesn't have any dashboards created. In this case, the app just displays a welcome message and it instructs people how they can create their new dashboards. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paste the link that I just copied. When I do so, the dashboard opens directly, and as you can see, it's the same one that I have previously created. There is a message here below its name that tells me it was shared by the administrator. And if I want to use this dashboard, then I can just keep the link and reuse it whenever I want to open it. But I also have an option to add it directly to my library. When I do so, it simply appears in the list just like any other dashboard that I may have created. But if I open it, you'll notice that it's still a shared dashboard. It still tells me that it was shared by the administrator. And if I open the menu, I don't have the option to actually modify it myself. This is because this dashboard is still controlled by the administrator user. So if I go back to the app with the administrator account, and let's say I modify this and add a new widget to it, and I will just add another value in here that will show, let's say, the unit sold. And just save the dashboard. You'll notice it appears here updated with the new unit sold widget, but it will also update for the other users who have access to the shared dashboard. So when they open the dashboard again, they will see all of the changes that the administrator user has done to the dashboard. When I no longer want to use it, and this works for the dashboard that I have created as well, then I can just use the delete button and it will be removed from my list. So as you can see, this app makes it very easy for end users to gain access to the information that they already have available in the ThingWorx platform and build and share their own custom visualization in minutes, making it a very powerful tool that can be leveraged by just about anyone.